Some heroes arrive loudly. They crash through ceilings, they announce themselves with lightning, shields, and billionaire level confidence issues, but Vision does not. He's born in a lab, mid conversation, mid conflict, mid identity crisis. He opens his eyes, already powerful, but not yet himself. And if you've ever felt like you technically had everything you were supposed to have, the intelligence, the potential, the capability, but still felt strangely unfinished, then this episode is for you. Welcome back, fellow mages, to the Grounded Mage, where we explore how myth and magic exist in everyday life. Vision isn't a late bloomer in the way we usually talk about late bloomers. He didn't start behind, he started empty. So let me ask you this right out of the gate. Is a person defined by what they're made of or who they choose to become? Because Vision's entire story lives in that question. Let's get into it. Vision is assembled from vibranium, the Mind Stone, Jarvis, Ultron's remnants, Bruce Banner's neuroscience, and Tony Stark's ego, which is already a mess. Actually, I do have an episode about Tony Stark's ego versus Captain America's integrity. It's linked in the description down below. Psychologically speaking, Vision is born with cognitive capacity, but no narrative identity. And that matters. Narrative identity is a psychology concept developed by Dan McAdams. Its idea is simple but profound. We don't know who we are until we tell ourselves a story about who we are. Vision doesn't have a story yet. He has data. And data is not meaning. This is why Vision doesn't immediately pick a side. All he says in his initial moments of awakening is, I am on the side of life. He speaks carefully, he pauses, and that doesn't make him weak. It just means he's integrating. And that is something that our culture is wildly uncomfortable with. We reward instant certainty, quick opinions, strong takes. But Vision embodies what developmental psychologist Robert Keegan calls meaning making transition, the space where your old frameworks no longer fit, but your new ones haven't stabilized yet. Let me ask you, have you ever been in a season where you knew you weren't anymore, but had no idea what you were becoming? That's Vision in Age of Ultron. One of Vision's most underrated traits is that he doesn't rush to dominate, despite being able to. There's a fascinating study known as the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. If you're unfamiliar with this, let me give you a brief description. In this experiment, researchers gave children between the ages of 4 and 6 a choice. They could have one marshmallow right now, or they could have two if they waited for the researcher to return to the room. The researcher leaves a marshmallow on a plate and then leaves the room and watches on monitors for 10 or 15 minutes to see what the children would do. It's a famous experiment and can be fun to watch. YouTube has tons of videos that feature it. You can check those out after you finish this episode, of course. So, let's talk about the less popular follow-up findings. I promise this does return to Vision. Later research showed that the delayed gratification wasn't just about self-control. It was about trust in the environment. Children waited not because they were better, but because they believed the future reward would come. Vision delays action because he trusts the process of becoming. He says things like, a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts, which, let's be honest, is not something a freshly born android needs to say. That's a philosopher. That's someone who sat with impertinence. Vision understands something many late bloomers eventually learn. Power without wisdom is destructive. And wisdom takes time. So ask yourself, where in your life are you capable of more, but choosing patience instead? Because that's not weakness, that's maturity. Vision's restraint isn't theoretical, it's behavioral. For example, in Age of Ultron, just moments after his creation, he lifts Thor's hammer. And then, this is important, he doesn't do anything with it. No victory lap, no dominance display, no, see, I'm worthy speech. He hands it back and simply says, we need to go. Psychologically, this is a textbook example of inhibitory control paired with moral reasoning, something developmental psychologists associate with advanced emotional regulation, not passivity. Vision doesn't need to prove himself because he isn't trying to secure an identity through validation. Then, in Captain America Civil War, Vision miscalculates a shot meant to protect War Machine and nearly kills Rhodey. What does he do after that? He steps back. He reduces his combat involvement. He questions his own certainty. He starts asking instead of asserting. That's rare. There's a concept in social psychology called error-based learning, where growth accelerates not from success, but from responsibly integrating failure. Vision doesn't double down. He recalibrates. Where in your life have you pulled back after a mistake, not to quit, but to learn? For those of you who are new here and might not know, by day, I'm a teacher. So I make mistakes a lot and I have to pull back and rethink things a lot. I actually make decisions on my feet in split seconds multiple times a day. There are great days in my job that go well, but there are many days that just getting through them is a feat in itself. I haven't quit that job because when it goes well, it's a very rewarding feeling. But there are days where maybe I say the wrong thing in a situation or I make a classroom management call that doesn't quite work. I have to take a step back and I have to look at it and go, okay, how can I do this better? How do I fix this problem without making it worse? If you're familiar with what it takes to pull back, think, and then go right back into the fire, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Here's where Vision's story takes a turn. Because restraint alone doesn't make you human, and intelligence doesn't make you alive. So what does? What turns Vision from an idea into a person? The answer isn't logic, it's attachment. And this is where Vision truly blooms. Vision doesn't learn humanity through battle. He learns it through love. Psychologist John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, believed that attachment isn't a bonus feature of being human. It's actually the foundation. And Vision chooses attachment, not because he needs it, but because he wants to understand it. There's a lesser known concept called earned secure attachment, where someone who didn't start with emotional grounding develops it through intentional relationships. Vision literally builds a self through a relationship with Wanda. He learns vulnerability, loss, choice, moral tension, and crucially, he learns grief before he learns permanence, which flips the usual order. So let me ask you a gentle question. Who helped you become more yourself? Not by fixing you, but by seeing you. Because Vision doesn't become human by copying humans. He becomes human by connecting with humans. Let's talk about the Ship of Theseus, because Vision doesn't just reference it, he becomes it. If you don't know what the Ship of Theseus is, it's a paradox. The core question is this. If all parts of an object, like a ship, are replaced, does its identity change? If the original planks are used to build a second ship, which one is the true Ship of Theseus? In WandaVision, we meet two visions. One built from grief and memory, and one rebuilt from parts and programming. Same body, different continuity, different self. And instead of fighting to the end, Vision chooses conversation. That matters. This mirrors identity continuity theory, which argues that identity survives change not through sameness, but through coherence. Vision doesn't ask which of us is real, he asks what makes us us. And then he does something incredibly human. He shares insight, he transfers memories, and he lets go. That's not defeat. That's integration. If your life had earlier versions of you, beliefs, roles, relationships, which parts would you keep and which ones would you release? Vision's quiet heroism culminates in his willingness to be destroyed for something larger than himself. This aligns with self-determination theory, which says humans thrive when three needs are met: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Vision chooses all three of these at different points in the movies. He chooses autonomy in Civil War. He doesn't blindly side with authority or rebellion. He studies outcomes. He questions probability. He chooses even when it puts him at odds with people he loves. That's autonomy, acting in alignment with values, not pressure. He chooses competence when he understands the cost of the Mind Stone before anyone else does. In Infinity War, he knows exactly what destroying it means, not just strategically, but personally. Competence isn't just a skill, it's acute self-awareness. And in the end, he chooses relatedness. Vision's final moments are not about saving the world. They're about Wanda. He says, "I just feel you." That's relatedness, the deepest form. Connection not as dependency, but as chosen meaning. Self-determination theory says when all three are present, we don't just function, we flourish. Vision doesn't flourish loudly, he flourishes fully. So, in summary, Vision chooses autonomy when he makes moral decisions, competence when he understands the stakes, and relatedness when he sacrifices for others. He's not loud, he's not flashy, but he is whole. And wholeness is the real bloom. So let me ask you this. What values would you protect even if it cost you your comfort? And which one are you leaning more towards right now? Autonomy, competence, or relatedness? Leave me a comment and tell me why. Vision teaches us something most heroes can't, that becoming isn't always about stepping forward. Sometimes it's about choosing. Choosing restraint over reaction, choosing values over survival, choosing meaning over certainty. Vision wasn't late. He was deliberate. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If you stripped away what you were meant to be, what would you still choose to stand for? Because that answer, not your speed, not your origin, not your timeline, that's who you are. Next week, we are going to bring this arc of late bloomers and quiet heroes together with an episode about how Samwise, Neville, and Vision are similar and what their stories mean for us as everyday people. Check out my videos on Samwise and Neville. They're linked in the description down below. It's going to help you be caught up for next week's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next week, fellow mages, make it make magic.